Hey YouTube, Kiritwig here, bringing you all my staple searcher Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for post-Cyberstorm access. With Cyberstorm access, we got the awesome new Harvest Angel of Doom, a pendulum monster that can search out Black Horn of Heaven and Horn of Heaven, two cards that can just straight up negate your opponent's special summons onto the field or any of their summons by tributing monsters, which also then can help by setting up Harvest Angel of Doom if used for that tribute. But we're also using the Manticore of Smashing Doom, which is a level 5 monster, which can also search out cards like Fissure and Smashing Ground. So both of these cards can search out what were considered staples in the day for a lot of different decks. Not so relevant, staples as of today, but still a very, very fun deck that can make use of all of these monsters in one deck altogether. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the newest monster, we're running 3 copies of Harvest Angel of Doom. The Pendulum Scale 8 effect is if during your main phase you can destroy this card. If you do, add 1 Black Horn of Heaven from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Harvest Angel of Doom once per turn, but just being able to search out your go-to trap that can stop exactly 1 special summon, Black Horn of Heaven, a counter trap that can definitely be powerful depending on the summon your opponent may try to do. And with this card's monster effect, if this card is normal or pendulum summon, you can add 1 Horn of Heaven from your deck to your hand. And if this card is tributed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. You can only use each effect of Harvest Angel of Doom once per turn. So the ideal play is for you to then add this card off of your Horn of Heaven tribute that you're meant to do into the pendulum zone and then get Black Horn of Heaven the following turn. You also have a way to special summon this card out because you could also tribute this card for a normal summon. So if you were to tribute it for Manticore of Smashing, you could get the search and then also set up your Manticore of Smashing's own search effect as well, which I'll go over one of the combos that I've used for this play at the end of the video. But this is also a pendulum summon deck, so you could potentially pendulum summon Harvest Angel of Doom out onto the field. The only problem here is that it won't be able to go into your pendulum scale, but if you have another copy there, you could always do the pendulum summon, getting out your Harvest Angel of Doom, then tribute the copy that's in your pendulum scale, and then set this one up after you tribute for your Manticore of Smashing. Being a deck that also focuses on counter traps, we're running 3 Guiding Ariadne. You apply these effects in the pendulum scale. With this card, you do not pay life points to activate counter trap cards. You do not discard to activate counter trap cards. And if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can reveal 3 counter traps in your deck. Your opponent chooses 1 for you to add to your hand, then shuffle the rest back into the deck. So we do run other counter traps in the deck for you just to make use of the search power, but it's also a scale 3, while your Harvest Angel of Doom is a scale 8. So you can easily set these scales and pendulum summon the same copies of these cards onto the field if you have multiple copies of them. We're also running 3 copies of the new Pendulum Moon, being another recycle card. With this one, during your main phase, you can add 1 face-up pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand and destroy this card. You can only use this effect of Pendulum Moon once per turn. So it's mostly here for the added monster effect of during the main phase. You can add up to 2 face-up pendulum monsters from your extra deck to your hand with levels between the pendulum scales of 2 cards in your pendulum zones. And also for the rest of this turn, until you pendulum summon, you cannot activate monster effects and effects of any other cards in your pendulum zone that are negated. You can only use this effect of Pendulum Moon once per turn, but you could also add Pendulum Moon back to your hand from the pendulum zone since it does have pendulum in its name. And being a scale 8, another monster that you could potentially summon out onto the field with a pendulum summon. The other monster we run is Moisa Knight, the Comet General. With this card, when you draw it, you can reveal it, and during main phase's turn, conduct 1 pendulum summon of a monster from your hand in addition to your pendulum summon. You only gain this effect once per turn, but being that potential draw, you can reveal it and then just have that option for an additional pendulum summon if need be. And being able to reset up your scales using cards like your Harvest Angel of Doom for its own destruction effect, setting it up in your extra deck, and then being able to special summon it back out after you use its other tribute effect, and then do a second pendulum summon. And when you draw with this card, if it's in your pendulum zone, place this card either on the top or bottom of your deck when you pendulum summon a monster. So you have the other recycle power just to set up your scales again, but being another high scale option and another level 1 that you could summon out with a scale 0 Pendulum Moon also. The other three for the monsters that we run is 3 copies of Manticore of Smashing, a level 6 monster. During your main phase, you can add 1 Fissure or Smashing Ground from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 Fissure or Smashing Ground from your hand or graveyard to special summon this card. You can only use each effect of Manticore of Smashing once per turn. So just being able to search out a spell card or either spell card that could destroy an opponent's monster is definitely a great going second option. You mostly want to use cards like your Harvest Angel of Doom if you go first, because then you can set up your counter traps face down, but then being able to use cards like Manticore of Smashing if you go second to give you a search for another card that could potentially take out one of your opponent's monsters and clear their board is also a big help there. And being able to, tribute your Harvest Angel of Doom to summon out Smashing Manticore of Smashing and then get the additional search off of both those cards merely helps just to keep that hand consistency for cards that stop your opponent's plays. Lastly, for the main deck monsters, I'm also running a 1-of card copy count for the Yugioh Angels. Now, these are mostly in here for easy special summoning plays and for the fact that we can use them to recycle cards in our graveyard, being the counter traps that we'll quickly go through with all of our different Horn of Heaven, and then being able to also disrupt our opponent's graveyard plays as well with these cards and that summon. And then for the spells, I run 2 copies of Fissure and 1 copy of Smashing Grounds. I'm only running the 1 Smashing Ground compared to the 2 Fissure because you destroy a face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest defense, so it doesn't really do much against link monsters. You do have a great target to search, but that's just it. It is searchable with your Manticore of Smashing, so you can then add it if need be if you're going up against a monster that's not a link monster. Otherwise, you can use Fissure and it destroys a monster that has the lowest attack, which a lot of times pendulum monsters are just the engine needed for that card. If they are the boss monster, normally they will be the only monster on the field in a good variety of situations, but it all comes down to just what you want to destroy using this card and Smashing Ground as well. And then also just being the engine needed to banish to special summon your Manticore Smashing back from the graveyard as well. I also run the 3 copies of Celestial Transformation. You just special summon a fairy monster from your hand, so you have the target for the Yugioh cards and also our Guiding Ariadne. And then also for the fact that if you destroy Guiding Ariadne off of Celestial Transformation, will gain that search, but it's here also just to special summon out your Harvest Angel of Doom, so then you contribute it for your Manticore Smashing using it for the normal summon. For the rest of the spells, I run 1 copy of 1-for-1 and the 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army for the Pendulum Moon and also the additional Moisa Knight search onto the field as just an additional monster resource to use to get out some of the bigger link monsters in our extra deck, like Beyond the Pendulum, just needing 2 effect monsters, including a pendulum monster, so having a 1-for-1 target, and then also just being able to set up our Yugioh cards in the graveyard with the 1-for-1 for more of that recycle shuffle back power. Moving on now to the traps, we are running 3 Horn of Heaven. Now, just another staple in the deck, you just have to tribute a monster when a monster would be summoned, and then negate that summon and destroy that monster. So this card helps for the fact that if you search it off of your Harvest Angel of Doom, you can add 1 Horn of Heaven, and then just have this card on the field, and then that 1 card search with Horn of Heaven can be the tribute needed to then set up the Harvest Angel of Doom in your Pendulum Scale to get an additional search during your next main phase. We're also running the 3 copies of Black Horn of Heaven for the when your opponent would special summon exactly 1 monster, negate the summon, and destroy it. Another search, you just get this one off of the Pendulum Scale effect of your Harvest Angel of Doom, but still another searcher to make use of off of the destruction of your Pendulum monster. Being able to add both a Horn of Heaven and a Black Horn of Heaven gives you 2 counter traps to stop 2 summons of your opponent's cards. And also the 3 Solemn Strike, just being additional searches off of Guiding Ariadne, and just another way to stop your opponent's monster effects and other additional special summons. And also 3 copies of Solemn Judgment for more back row protection for your Pendulum Scales and your other set cards, along with the 1 Solemn Warning as just an additional target to search off of the Guiding Ariadne as well. You use your Harvest Angel of Doom for the good majority of search for your Horn of Heavens, but you can still have a good number of other counter traps to search off of your other monsters as well. And then moving on now to the extra deck, I run 2 copies of Beyond the Pendulum, just more of the search power, and just a way to special summon back our Pendulum monsters in a better variety of ways, since we have 2 Pendulum arrows to use with this card. And depending on the monsters we summon out, we could get some other additional summons using those resources and the added scales of both Moisa and Pendulum Moon, being 0 and 11 for summoning out all the different monsters we run in the Pendulum lineup for the main deck. Also, 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix, 1 copy of Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 Axis Code Talker for the rest of the Link monsters. And also 1 copy of Baguska, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Exciton Knight, 1 Gagaga Cowboy, 1 number 60, 1 Kinkigashi Fucho, and 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus for all of our XYZ plays we can go into. I thought of maybe adding more rank 1 plays, but I was seeing myself using the level 4s more and more with the different Harvest Angel and Guiding Ariadne level 4s and the Ishizu monsters. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, our starting monster is, for a good majority of the plays, Harvest Angel of Doom. But if you have this card, your Celestial Transformation, and Manticore of Smashing in your hand, you can use the Celestial Transformation to special summon out your Harvest Angel of Doom. And then when this card is normal or Pendulum Summon, you can get the additional add of your Horn of Heaven. So you have to remember it has to be Pendulum Summon for that effect, but you also have just the Tribute Search for your Manticore of Smashing to then set this card up when it's tributed in your Pendulum Zone. Then you can use the Destruction effect to then get your additional search for your Black Horn of Heaven to your hand. So you have the 1 counter search there. And then if you have your Manticore Smashing, you can then use its additional skill to get the Fissure or Smashing Ground, depending on which one you want, to your hand. Even if you go first, you have 1 card less out of your deck for you to search and add to your hand. And then, depending on your Pendulum skill, you could have the additional Harvest Angel of Doom, or you can have some of your other scales set up, whether it's the Pendulum Moon or the Moissanite. If you have any of these scales, or even Guiding Ariadne, or even another Harvest Angel of Doom, you have the play. It doesn't say you can't set another Harvest Angel of Doom, you just can't use the effect again. But then if you go for the Pendulum Summon, you can summon out your Harvest Angel of Doom and then add the final Trap Search, which is your Horn of Heaven. So with all of these plays that you've summoned out, you would have the additional 2 Pendulum monsters, the Manticore Smashing, the Harvest Angel of Doom, and the Celestial Transformation in your hand to then give you the additional 3 searches, being able to set up the 2 counter traps on the field, and then also have a potential destruction card to use against your opponent the following turn, and then 2 additional monsters that you could use to summon out 1 other monster from your extra deck. If you went for the play in reverse, and let's say you just set up your Pendulum Scale for that play, you could just Pendulum Summon out the Harvest Moon or Harvest Angel of Doom, getting that search for the Horn of Heaven, cutting out the Celestial Transformation, and then setting that card, and then the additional tribute, since you have a normal summon, of your Manticore of Smashing. But the only problem with this play is you have to remember, after you use the Pendulum Summon of a monster, you place the Moissanite on the bottom of the deck. So make sure you activate that first so you can place the Harvest Angel of Doom in the Pendulum Scale, and then you can activate the Destruction effect to gain the Black Horn of Heaven off of those searches. That's the one thing you want to remember, because then you miss a good amount of time if you forget your chain links to set up this scale. If you go for the Pendulum Scale effect first for the summon, and depending on what you have in your Pendulum Scales, you have to have your Moissanite to return to be able to set up the Harvest Angel of Doom. Otherwise, if you have, let's say, another Harvest Angel of Doom and you go for the tribute, if your scales are full, you won't be able to set it up there for the Black Horn of Heaven. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, it was just a fun deck that I was a real big fan reading over the cards and seeing that they had all this search power for all the many different staples we used to run a good while back in Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of these new monsters we can use. And I hope you all enjoyed as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.